Imagine you are standing in a room full of people. You are the one who is always there, the one who listens, the one who agrees, the one who sacrifices your own time to ensure everyone else feels comfortable. You pride yourself on being the nice one. But then, you notice something subtle. A glance shared between others that excludes you. A request made of you that feels more like an assumption than a favor. A slow, creeping realization that the more you give, the less your presence seems to matter. You are well liked, perhaps, but you are not respected. And in that silence, you wonder, why does my kindness feel like a currency that is losing its value? Most people lose their influence long before they realize they've surrendered it. They believe that if they just keep giving, just keep smoothing over the edges, eventually, the world will reward them with the weight and gravity that leaders possess. But the reality is far more counterintuitive. The more accessible you are, the less valuable you become. Stay with me, because by the end of this journey, you will realize that regaining your standing isn't about becoming harder or colder. It is about reclaiming the one thing you have been giving away for free: your own self-regard. The struggle of the nice person often stems from a fundamental misunderstanding of what respect actually is. We are taught from childhood that if we are kind, selfless, and accommodating, we will be rewarded with status and honor. But human psychology works differently. When you make your time, your emotional labor, and your agreement entirely accessible to everyone, you unintentionally signal that those things have no barrier to entry. In behavioral psychology, this is related to the principle of scarcity. Humans are hardwired to assign higher value to things that are rare and difficult to obtain. When you are always on, always available, and always eager to please, you are inadvertently teaching people that your boundaries are non-existent. You are telling the world that your time is not a precious resource, but a communal utility. The emotional consequence of this is a quiet, eroding form of resentment. You start to feel used, not necessarily because the people around you are malicious, but because you have failed to set the terms of engagement. You become a fixture in their lives, like a piece of furniture, necessary perhaps, but rarely noticed until it isn't where it is expected to be. This leads to a state of emotional depletion where you feel invisible in plain sight, desperately craving validation from the very people who have stopped looking at you as an equal. Consider the story of Julian. Julian was a senior project lead at a fast-paced architecture firm. He was the person who stayed until 9 p.m. to fix a colleague's error, who never complained when his weekends were interrupted, and who offered a smile to everyone, even when he was exhausted. Julian believed he was building a legacy of being the reliable guy. He thought that by being the person who never said no, he was ensuring his position in the company. One Tuesday, a high-stakes partnership meeting was called. A promotion for a director-level position was on the table. Julian walked in, expecting his name to be championed for his years of sacrifice. Instead, he watched as they promoted a peer named Alana. Alana was polite, yes, but she was notoriously difficult to reach. She protected her time fiercely. She said no to projects that didn't align with her vision. She made people work to earn her approval. After the meeting, Julian confronted his manager, asking why his years of being there for everyone hadn't been rewarded. The manager looked at him with a mix of pity and frustration. "Julian," he said, "you're wonderful to have around. But we don't look to you to lead because we've never seen you stand for anything. You don't lead the room, you accommodate it." Julian's story is a tragedy of misplaced values. He equated being useful with being respected. But in any hierarchy, respect is reserved for those who show they have a clear internal compass. When you lack boundaries, you aren't showing kindness. You are showing a lack of self-ownership. The Stoics. particularly thinkers like Marcus Aurelius, understood that the opinion of others is a preferred indifferent. It is something we might like to have, but it is not something we should ever sacrifice our character to obtain. Epictetus famously taught that if you want to be free, you must learn to distinguish between what is in your control and what is not. Your own actions, your principles, and your boundaries are entirely within your control. How others perceive you, whether they like you, whether they find you nice, or whether they respect you, is entirely outside of your control. When you base your self-worth on the external validation of others, you are essentially handing them the keys to your internal kingdom. You are living at the mercy of their moods. When you become too nice, you are performing a role, trying to manage how people perceive you to ensure they stay happy. But as Seneca noted, he who seeks to please everyone pleases no one, and least of all himself. The Stoic does not seek to be nice in the modern accommodating sense. The Stoic seeks to be just. Justice includes being fair to others, but it also includes being fair to yourself. If you are constantly setting yourself on fire to keep others warm, you are not being virtuous. You are being negligent toward the life you have been given. Respect, in the eyes of the Stoics, is a natural byproduct of someone who acts with integrity, speaks with truth, and adheres to their own principles, regardless of the social pressure to do otherwise. You must become a person who is capable of being difficult, because that is the only way to prove that your yes actually means something. Why does this happen on a subconscious level? We need to look at the psychological concept of validation seeking. When you are constantly seeking validation through compliance, you trigger a dynamic known in social psychology as the pursuer-distancer cycle. The moment you begin to pursue others' approval, they unconsciously move away, not necessarily because they dislike you, but because the lack of challenge makes the interaction uninteresting. There is no mystery, no depth to explore. You have handed them the map to your emotional interior. And when there is nothing left to discover, the value of the connection plummets. We often confuse niceness with agreeableness. In the Big Five personality traits, high agreeableness is often associated with a desire to maintain social harmony. However, when taken to an extreme, it becomes a liability. It prevents you from engaging in the necessary friction that defines a healthy relationship. Without friction, there is no spark. Without the occasional boundary, there is no distinction between you and the background noise of someone else's life. Furthermore, there is the issue of attentional bias. Because you are so focused on reading the room to see if people are happy with you, you lose the ability to read the room for true power dynamics. You become reactive rather than proactive. You aren't acting, you are responding to the anticipated needs of others. This is a submissive posture. It isn't about being mean, it is about the fundamental difference between a person who is centered and a person who is scattered. The people who command the most respect in any room are those who are high integrity, low reactivity. They are kind, but their kindness is intentional. It is a choice, not a default setting. They have boundaries, which is simply another word for self-respect. They understand that their energy is a limited asset, and they guard it like a king guards a treasure. There is a subtle but vital distinction between being a nice person and being a good person. A nice person is someone who avoids conflict at all costs, suppresses their own needs to keep the peace, and often harbors deep, secret resentment when their sacrifices aren't recognized. A good person, however, is someone who possesses the courage to be honest, the strength to set boundaries, and the wisdom to know when saying no is the most virtuous act available. When you are nice in the way we've been discussing, you are often being dishonest. You say yes when you mean no. Or you act like you are okay with being treated with casual disrespect because you are afraid of the confrontation that might arise if you speak up. This is a form of cowardice masquerading as kindness. People sense this. They sense the underlying lack of authenticity. They might enjoy the convenience of your compliance, but they will never respect the soul behind it because they can see that you don't even respect yourself enough to tell the truth about your own limits. The path to respect is not the path of being a doormat. It is the path of being a human being with a defined shape. You must have edges. You must have things you stand for, and more importantly, things you will not stand for. How do you shift from being the person everyone relies on to the person everyone respects? It begins with small, deliberate changes in your habits. This is not about a sudden, dramatic personality overhaul. It is about reclaiming your autonomy, one interaction at a time. 1. The power of the calculated pause. When someone asks for your time, your help, or your opinion, do not answer immediately. Train yourself to pause. Take 3 seconds before you speak. This small window of time does 2 things. It gives you the space to decide if you actually want to do what is being asked. And it signals to the other person that your time and thoughts are not automatic commodities. It tells them, my input is a choice, not a reaction. 2. The no with a reason. You don't need to be aggressive. You can be firm. Instead of saying yes to everything, practice saying, I can't commit to that right now, as my focus is on. When you provide a brief reason, you aren't being mean. You are demonstrating that you have a life of your own. People respect those who are driven by their own objectives. It signals that you have a hierarchy of values and that your life has a structure that is independent of their requests. 3. Stop explaining your boundaries. One of the biggest mistakes people pleasers make is over-explaining why they are saying no. You don't owe anyone a dissertation on why you can't attend a social event or why you can't take on an extra task. An explanation often sounds like an apology. When you apologize for having a boundary, you are signaling that you feel guilty for existing as an autonomous person. A simple "that won't work for me," delivered with a calm, steady tone, is sufficient. If they ask for more, you can simply repeat, "It just doesn't fit my current capacity." 4. Cultivate your own internal life. The less you look for external approval, the more people will look to you for it. Engage in hobbies, studies, or physical challenges that have nothing to do with your social status or your workplace. When you have a life that is fulfilling and demanding, you naturally become less available. Paradoxically, this makes you more attractive as a person. You stop being the person who is always looking for a seat at the table and start being the person who is focused on the work itself. When you are deeply engaged in your own pursuit, you don't have time to be bothered by the trivial requests of others. That focus is magnetic. People are naturally drawn to those who seem to be going somewhere. Communication is not just about what you say. It is about how you exist in a space. If you want to be respected, look at your body language and your verbal habits. Are you shrinking yourself? Are you using filler words like maybe, or if that's okay, that diminish the impact of your statements? Start practicing radical clarity. When you speak, speak with the assumption that your perspective is valid. You don't need to hedge. You don't need to ask for permission to have an opinion. If you are wrong, you will correct yourself. But do not start by assuming you are wrong. This shift in communication is part of what psychologists call assertiveness training. But it is deeper than that. It is a reclamation of your right to exist as a person who contributes value to the room. When you speak as if you believe your words have weight, others will start to believe it too. Imagine the version of yourself who has applied these principles. You are no longer the one hovering on the edges of the room, looking for a cue on how to act. You are standing firm in your own integrity. You speak when it is necessary. You listen when it is useful, and you say no when it is required. The people who were used to the old you, the one who would always bend, may initially be confused. They might even be frustrated or test your new resolve. This is the test. This is the moment where most people falter and revert to their old nice patterns because they fear the momentary discomfort of an awkward interaction. Do not falter. If people only respect you when you are yielding to them, they never respected you in the first place. They only respected your utility. Let them be frustrated. That frustration is the sound of you reclaiming your autonomy. It is the friction that creates a new version of you. As you navigate this, remember that this isn't about power plays or manipulation. It is about alignment. It is about realizing that your kindness is a gift. And a gift is only truly a gift when it is given by choice, not by obligation. When you own your own value, you no longer need to bargain for respect. You simply occupy it, like a mountain occupies space. Respect is not built in a day. It is built in the cumulative moments where you choose your principles over your desire to be liked. It is built in the 100 times you said no when it was hard, and the 100 times you stood up for yourself when it was easier to stay silent. Human beings are pattern recognition machines. Everyone around you is constantly observing your patterns. They are looking to see if you are a person who can be pushed around or a person who has firm foundations. Every time you compromise your boundaries, you teach them to keep pushing. Every time you hold your ground, you teach them to respect it. This is the Stoic practice of consistency of character. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself that he should be like the emerald, which keeps its color even if no one praises it. Your worth is not determined by the applause of the crowd. It is determined by the internal standard you set for yourself. We have explored the mechanics of the nice trap and the Stoic wisdom that pulls us out of it. We have looked at the psychology of why over-accessibility leads to underappreciation. And we have discussed the practical, quiet discipline of setting boundaries. True strength is quiet. It doesn't need to shout to be heard, and it doesn't need to be nice to be accepted. It resides in the person who knows who they are, what their work is, and why their time is precious. When you treat yourself with that level of reverence, the world will eventually follow suit. But this is not a one-time adjustment. It is a daily practice. Tomorrow, when you are asked for something you do not have the capacity to give, or when you feel that familiar itch to perform for approval, remember the pause. Remember that your value is inherent, not earned. The transition from nice to respected is not a transition into a different person. It is a transition into the person you were always meant to be. It is the shedding of the mask you wore to appease others, and the revelation of the person who has enough self-regard to stand tall in the face of judgment. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Where have you been giving away your respect for the sake of being nice? What is one small, specific boundary you can set today that will remind you and others of your worth? Write it down, commit to it, and then hold it with the quiet confidence of someone who understands that they are the architect of their own life. If this message resonated with you, I invite you to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever felt the weight of being too available? And what was the turning point that helped you shift your perspective? Your experiences are not just stories. They are guideposts for everyone else in this community. For more explorations into the intersection of Stoic philosophy and modern psychology, subscribe and join us as we continue to refine the art of living well. You have the power to decide who you are. Start today, not with a roar, but with the calm, decisive act of choosing yourself. You are capable of so much more than the role you have been playing. It is time to step into your own weight, to own your own space, and to command the respect that is already yours by virtue of your humanity.